Welcome to Stock Law Now. I'm your host, Scott Colasanti. Hey, did you see the Department of Justice recently put up for sale souvenirs from the Fyre Festival? I guess it's just so we'll never forget the lessons from that tale of greed and sand. So now, coming to you from the only spot in my garage the crickets haven't yet claimed, it's Fyre Festival Fraud Forever, the second podcast from Stock Law Now. As always, my trusty dog Cherry shall intervene should I digress. Thank you, Cherry. And here we go. April 2017. Long after TVs began displaying the time of day, but still years before the flying car, hundreds of young Americans descend upon a little-known part of the Bahamas for what the internet promised would be the most luxurious music festival of all time. They have been lured there for months by Instagram pictures of supermodels and enthusiastic endorsements by other Instagram influencers. The ticket purchases have been teased with notions of riding jet skis with Kendall Jenner or taking in a gourmet lunch near model Bella Hadid. Images abound of sun, sand, and mysterious sea turtles. Trappings for the magical days in paradise are to range from a luxury cabana to a private villa. The two-weekend event is to feature over 30 hip music acts and a cash-free environment for 6,000 expected guests. Attendees can choose to pay for a little comfort for about $1,000 or extreme comfort for $125,000. It's going to be as though Woodstock returned without the mud, but with the comfort of a carnival cruise and the networking possibilities of the Playboy Mansion. But the dreams quickly crash and burn. The hundreds of youths who arrive from Miami in late April are initially plied with alcohol and taped music. They learn as night falls that no musical act showed up. Further, they must race across forgotten sands to find lodging among government surplus tents. Therein, the mattresses are rain-soaked. Meanwhile, the food consists mainly of sandwiches in styrofoam containers. Indeed, the meteor glamour has disappeared, and the supermodels and turtles are nowhere to be seen. Come morning, the attendees must scramble for flights back to the mainland, hoodwinked consumers in a desolate and desperate place. Truly, it was as though the Grinch had moved to a twice-a-year schedule. It was like Lord of the Flies Island had opened and then aborted a spa. Okay. All of which disappointment has been amply chronicled by the 3 documentaries of 2019 detailing the fire disaster of 2017. At its core, it's another story of broken dreams and deception. Why continue to shine sun on this storm, if you will? Well, it's also a tale of multiple regulatory questions. To get a feel for their full range, we have to look back to 2013. At that time, a college-age entrepreneur from New Jersey named Billy McFarland hatched the notion of a super credit card.
There is nothing quite as wonderful as money.
With no banking experience, McFarland promotes to Manhattanites a charge card that will outpace the upper echelon, eye-catching lines of credit such as the American Express Gold Card. Magnesis is the name of both the card and the related social club he starts. Users of the novel wallet weapon, literally made of metal, pay $250 a year to own a Magnesis card and some vague networking capabilities. They seem to care little that upon inspection, the black metal card is simply a toy that on its back duplicates the owner's existing account number from a credit line such as Visa or Amex. Magnesis thrives, according to the SEC, garnering $3 million from 24 investors. These investors are told figures concerning revenues and club membership that have been inflated up to 1,000%. Armed with the success of Magnesis, McFarland thinks even bigger. In 2016, now a seasoned 25 years old, he forms Fyre Media, LLC. The private company is described as an online talent booking agency. An app that could put you in touch with celebrities you wish to attend your birthday party, if you will. Again, according to the SEC, McFarlane misrepresents the scope, dealings, and revenues from Magnesis. He sells promissory notes to Fyre media investors that yield him close to $8 million. At least one of the 3 documentaries from 2019 alleges that the success of Magnesis leads to McFarlane obtaining a line of credit worth much, much more. As part of the launch of Fyre Media, the epic, groundbreaking event shall be a music festival in the Bahamas, the marketing for which peaks in December 2016. In that month, in an impressively coordinated and glitzy campaign, McFarlane films a video worthy of any MTV throwback. In turn, between 200 and 400 Instagram celebrities begin to display a cryptic sign, namely an orange square, kind of like if the Beatles' White Album cover were colorized by Disney. The blank logo succeeds in causing an online frenzy of interest. Paid celebrity endorsers contemporaneously display images of themselves frolicking in the sands of the Caribbean. The Fyre Festival has become a goal for the nameless but hip crowd of the internet. As McFarlane later concedes on camera, we're selling a pipe dream to your average loser. The marketing for the Fyre Festival being a huge success, between December 2016 and April 2017, McFarlane and his cohorts embark on an ill-fated project to bring stage, talent, glamour, attendees, housing, food, and necessities to a deserted strip of island called Great Exuma. The company's lack of experience in planning massive public events quickly shows itself. Betting shall be minimal, and even then, only enough to accommodate about a third of the expected crowds. Water bottles are stuck in customs, transportation to and from the Seoul airport and other practical problems are backburnered. As time slips away, experts in music festivals come and go amidst the disorganized and chaotic preparations. Meanwhile, money is running thin. Hundreds of ticket purchases and scores of investors have provided cash to Fyre Media, but it's simply not enough. McFarlane brainstorms and creates wristbands that attendees can load up virtually in advance, so as to never have to open their wallets during all the fun of the festival. Believe it or not, the notion conjures up another nearly $800,000 from numerous ticket purchases. By the time of the April 28, 2017 debacle, an estimated 1,000 hopeful attendees have ponied up between $400 and $1,500 for the right to attend and be lodged by the Fyre Festival. Yet word of the festival difficulties have traveled worldwide, and thus only about 500 people fly to the Bahamas for the event. Within days, it is clear that the festival was dead on arrival and that the majority of the money is gone. Added to the list of the disgruntled are about 200 Bahamian workers claiming $250,000 in unpaid wages, and unpaid Fyre Media employees back in New York numbering about 20. And of course, about 100 people around the world have invested over $27 million in this disaster. It's a collapse that would otherwise be humorous were it not for the enormity of the fraud and the broad range of economic and career victims. As we turn to the equally dismal media fallout, please enjoy this soothing piano music to lift spirits. As for that immediate response, ironically, internet tweets and postings, the very means of Fyre Festival's birth, hasten its quick and ugly demise. Pictures of the squalid lodgings and resulting pandemonium dominate social media even in the days before the event is formally canceled. Subsequently, anger and disdain and multiple excuses and apologies proliferate. The millennial mass meme machine turns ugly. Witness the superlative comments of the following oft-followed news authorities. The BBC called it the world's biggest flop. Rolling Stone magazine alternatively referred to the Fyre Festival as a nightmare, a disaster, and an epic failure. The New York Times remained highbrow by simply referencing the wreckage of the Fyre Festival. Meanwhile, Variety magazine may have said it best. Twitter responded accordingly, with users sharing outrageous memes comparing the event to a post-apocalyptic nightmare. Some even hypothesized that the mess was a social experiment to help wealthy millennials understand the severity of the refugee crisis. End quote. That last theme of punishment for customers with privilege seemed to resonate with some. One comedian on a popular late-night talk show quipped that people dumb enough to spend $1,300 to see the band Blink-182 get what they deserve. Regardless of any harsh mainstream dismissiveness, there were bound to be legal repercussions, a lot of them. While you contemplate their range, please enjoy this delightful riff and roll. Okay, enough of that. Turning to legalities. Undisclosed paid endorsements on social media is truly a budding area of the law. One specific problem underlying the Fyre fraud was that among the glut of postings by pretty people about the upcoming Don't Miss event, some were procured by very noteworthy payment. Ironically, about 10 days before Fyre was to commence, the Federal Trade Commission reminded that, quote, all influencers should clearly and conspicuously disclose their relationships to brands when promoting or endorsing products through social media. Likewise, in late 2019, the FTC formalized and updated that written guidance to underscore that the responsibility to make disclosures about endorsements lies with the influencer, end quote. However, no FTC actions were ever brought against people who touted the Fyre Festival. The SEC emerged as the hero of this story. Armed with a wealth of precedents for misstatements by management to investors, the Commission issued 5 claims seeking return of all $27 million of invested funds and permanent bars against McFarland, his chief marketing officer, and a Fyre media vice president. It bears noting for my students who have studied abroad with me and saw only local actions concerning public companies that Fyre Media is a private company. It can be said that the United States alone commits a regulator to policing both public and private enterprises. Back to our story. A short time after the SEC complaint was issued, McFarland and those at Fyre Media charged with him settled the accusations. Impressively, the facts alleged within the SEC charges effectively blow away the images of a carefree McFarland, drink in hand, jet skiing around the blue waters off of the Bahamas. In fact, the Commission describes the customary tale of those who ultimately squander monies on limos and enviable apartments, trying to obtain more investment monies through inflated figures, fictional relationships, and/or phony documents. Consequentially, the perennial questions abound, such as who taught McFarland how to create a fictitious private placement memorandum. And thus one still feels that the agency could have gone further. If the Fyre Festival was a security, then those who touted it technically come under Section 17B of the 33 Act. That storied section requires that all parties touting a deal disclose the specific monies that they were paid to promote it. To be sure, it's not a perfect fit to the influencers and other parties involved in Fyre Media, but neither is applying Section 17B to celebrities who tout coin offerings, which the SEC did twice in 2018. Just ask boxer Floyd Mayweather and TV star DJ Khaled.
Send lawyers, guns, and money.
Separately, the Department of Justice reacted quickly and firmly. McFarland was arrested about 2 months after the festival in June 2017. In March 2018, he pled guilty to 2 counts of wire fraud. Amazingly, while out on bail, and again as pictured in the documentaries, McFarland conducted a fraud by selling VIP tickets that he did not have or that did not exist to people he knew of from the Fyre Media email list. This new spat of unlawful activity led to additional counts of fraud. Thus, for all his activities, in October 2018, McFarland was sentenced to 6 years in prison and ordered to forfeit over $26 million. And if that number sounds familiar, yes, there are various regulators laying claim to the same pot here. The DOJ action was not short on details. Among other things, McFarland was said to have represented to investors that Fyre Media had 2,500 talent bookings in a single year, when the number was actually closer to 60. Harkening back to the days of Capone, the DOJ press release warned, quote, "Today, McFarland found out the hard way that empty promises don't lead to jet-setting, champagne, and extravagant parties. They lead to federal prison," end quote. In terms of private litigation, in August 2019, the bankruptcy trustee for the festival subsidiary filed lawsuits against influencers and organizers. In May of 2020, celebrity Kendall Jenner settled out of this litigation by agreeing to pay $90,000. That's roughly 1/3 of what she had been paid by Fyre Media to promote the event on Instagram. Those bankruptcy proceedings and the civil depositions therein continue as of the time of this podcast. Interestingly, a lawsuit filed almost immediately after their return to the U.S. by 2 North Carolina festival attendees resulted in a $5 million verdict in May 2018. The concertgoers had spent $13,000 for luxury festival packages. They still hope to recover those monies. Additionally, in May 2017, 150 plaintiffs in a class action sought $100 million under consumer protection statutes. The named plaintiff allegedly spent about $2,000 on his ticket and airfare alone. Overall, attendees from various locales were included as plaintiffs. In November 2019, the lawsuit was dismissed, where it named as co-defendant rapper Ja Rule. Ja Rule was a co-founder of the festival along with McFarland. The Southern District of New York judge allowed him out of the suit, noting that online statements and tweets to ticket purchasers alleged to be false could not be attributed to parties other than McFarland under the group pleading doctrine, which exists only in securities law. Finally, what could be said to be the hometown regulator in this debacle, the New York Attorney General's office, took no action. Indeed, there is no mention of Fyre Festival anywhere on the AG website, although the former New York Attorney General in 2017 did launch an inquiry into the failed New York City Pizza Festival. That festival charged people $75 each and led to numerous complaints regarding the quantity and quality of pizza provided. That's a good deal of litigation involving a good number of lawyers and a good number of laws. But here's the thing. The festival stays fresh as a dual reminder of gullible human nature and the limits to a regulatory mosaic in which each part owns discretion over its own agenda. The SEC impressively leveraged its case law concerning misstatements to punish McFarland and others over the phony documents sent to investors. The DOJ obtained a plea to numerous counts, a prison sentence, and a sizable forfeiture. The FTC strengthened its warnings over Instagram influencing without disclosure of compensation. The state attorney generals did very little. The net result? Those who study the Fyre Festival fraud see numerous people telling lies, hundreds of ordinary people being fleeced, a short list of very well-to-do people being theoretically recompensed with monies that are likely gone forever, and a social media machine poised for a repeat of it all. And, oh yes, one guy did go to jail. Overall, this Fyre fraud thingy hardly feels like it's over. Here's the dream that emerges from this timeless tale. Imagine all American business regulators working as one, sharing the workload to avoid duplication of effort, dividing the recovered monies so that all are made whole, avoiding the bureaucratic response of the feds are handling it, or we have jurisdictional limits. 'Tis a dream devoutly to be wished. Agencies, self-regulatory organizations, and the private bar, routinely mindful of each other's strengths and weaknesses and aware of who is being left off the recovery grid. Imagine investors and ticket purchasers and unpaid workers all being recompensed in proportion to the wrong, and not left out because some late-night comedian called them stupid for trusting handshakes and Twitter. All the fraudsters in a scheme knowing with certainty that strict and sure justice awaits them. All the public ever conscious of the warning of that great festival band Led Zeppelin, if you go down to the street tonight, baby, you better open your eyes. Imagine such universal foresight and service, truly justice for all. Yes, such a cooperative plan will never happen. But what is doable is a sharing of the SEC loot. By its own admission, the Commission collects hundreds of millions each year in disgorgement. That's a separate pot from fines collected. And that separate pot, in turn, finds its way back to about half of the victims of securities fraud. The rest goes to the good old U.S. Treasury. Why not direct the unclaimed and undispersed disgorgement funds to the states? The Martin Act, which is the blue sky law in New York, permits investigation and conviction by the Attorney General based upon false advertising or promises, quote, from within the state, which means that going after internet lies touching upon securities, like the Fyre Festival, commenced by a New Yorker upon other New Yorkers via advertising that emanated from New York and culminating in a plane leaving from New York, is simply not something that the state attorney general felt strong enough to pursue, and that's a shame. Stock Law Now says the mosaic of business regulation in this country has proven itself a worthy adversary to fraud. It can get better. We don't begrudge the people who pay $6 for a gallon of gas. We begrudge the gas station that dared set prices that high. Likewise, we shouldn't write off the young'un who paid $1,500 in hopes of swimming near supermodels. Begrudge the people who lied and said it was going to happen and took the money and squandered it. And don't later point to distinction between investors and consumers when such are easily overcome. Is that regulatory paternalism? It sure as hell is. And that's what makes the American regulatory mosaic work. If one regulator doesn't catch you, another one will. Let the seller beware. The securities laws have been working on that premise since 1933. Maybe the consumer laws need to catch up. Until social media is better regulated, that may be the truest course of action. Well, that's all the time we have. Be sure to pick up a Fyre fraud hat, wristband, or hoodie. The government auction closed last month, but there are still plenty available on eBay. Wear the souvenir proudly. No matter what the lettering, it really says, "In America, we catch crooks." We're still debating who does the catching and when enough is enough. For Stock Law Now, this is Scott Colasanti, and as a tip for non-millennials, ignore the change password warnings. When the 30 days are up, just email the IT department like you ultimately were going to anyway.
Stock Law Now is prepared, delivered, and copyrighted by Professor Scott Colasanti of Hofstra Law School. All views expressed herein are personal, so please, no wagering. For links to documents referenced herein, visit Castography at www.stocklawnow.com.